part 2 of this one-part series where I'm building the cumulative case against Christianity. We looked at the creation of the universe, including the various possibilities for exactly how that happened, over what duration of time, and how humans came to be here on planet Earth, as those things are all fundamental to the Christian story and belief. In this video, we're going to jump right into another fundamental part of the Christian story, the event which sets up everything else to come in terms of creating a coherent theology and its ability to make sense of our world. Next up, Christians have to believe that thousands or billions of years after creation, depending on which creation model you embrace, God finally got around to giving people some direction on how to live, or at least how he'd like them to live. And when I say people, I mean a very small group of people rather than humanity as a whole. Brilliant, really, when you think about it, but even more so if you don't. Of course, Christians have to believe that God finally gave his people guidance only after allowing these good folks to be enslaved for nearly 400 years in Egypt, a place where they left absolutely no evidence of their nearly 400-year enslavement. Impressive. After which these people, now numbering in the millions, miraculously escaped Egypt and wandered in the desert for 40 years, once again leaving absolutely no trace of having ever been there. It's like a David Copperfield special. It was during this time in the desert that God gave the prophet Moses the Pentateuch: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Meaning that Christians have to believe that God told Moses a story of creation which suggested the universe, our earth, and humans are very recent creations, never once mentioning the term mytho-history, to Bill Craig's chagrin. Christians also have to believe that this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God has a very different set of priorities from what we might imagine. For instance, they have to believe that God expressly forbade the eating of shellfish and pork, the wearing of linen and wool together, etc., but somehow forgot to forbid rape or the selling of their daughters into slavery. Christians have to believe that this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God was entirely preoccupied not with the incredibly valuable moral lessons we've learned over the centuries about how we ought to treat each other, but rather with the proper way to slaughter a bull, a goat, or a dove, and exactly where to sprinkle the blood. That's very important, by the way, where to sprinkle the blood, because bloodstains are a bitch, am I right? Christians also have to believe that this all-loving God, having just freed his people from slavery, then gives his people instructions on how to practice slavery properly. Because all-loving gods can't have their people mucking up the slave trade, right? And you definitely need to clarify who can and who cannot be a sex slave. That goes without saying. Christians also have to believe that their all-knowing God had and has yet absolutely no clue when it comes to female biology, requiring the death penalty for brides who fail to show evidence of a broken hymen on their wedding night, as though the hymen can't break prior to intercourse or remain intact even after intercourse. Perhaps God turned off his all-knowingness just like Mr. Deity. Then Christians have to believe that our all-loving God really wanted his newly freed people to have a very particular piece of land, which, despite his being all-powerful and completely able to painlessly Thanos-snap the allegedly awful people living there into oblivion, he ordered this newly freed people to commit genocide, telling them to leave alive nothing that breathes. This includes babies, toddlers, and animals, including Sparky and Mr. Twiggles. Now, if you're rightly worried about what that kind of brutality might do to God's people, having to murder innocent babies, toddlers, and animals, fear not, because God allowed his people, well, his guys, to take the virgin girls back home to meet the folks, have their heads shaved, and take a 30-day vacay before they're forced to marry the men who slaughtered their friends, families, livestock, and, of course, Sparky and Mr. Twiggles. This is all part of the cumulative case against Christianity. Personally, I think it's pretty easy to see from just parts 3 and 4 we've looked at here that this is some of the most ridiculous stuff a person could ever possibly believe. But we're not done. In part 7, we'll be looking at the centerpiece of the Christian story. So stay tuned and tubed. Once again, I'm me. Thanks for watching.